Good evening, everybody. Let's see if I get everything right here. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking interest in our son, Richard Halliday, and his disappearance, and our search for him, and our investigation in his, essentially at this point, his murder case. And I don't say that lightly. Um, but we are reaching 1,000 days, and I don't want to reach 1,000 days. I want answers, and we keep getting leaks, leaks, leaks. And so, what does that tell you? Today is day 985. 985 days. We've been keeping count since Richard vanished from the barracks room on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. This is this is a city that has a lot of taxes, y'all. That's what I'm finding out. It has a lot of taxes. What does that mean? It should have a security. This is a city that has Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss is very well funded. We have $1 trillion DOD. Where are the CCTV footage, the cameras? Where's this is a secure barracks. This is a secure military installation. And we got some leaks yesterday. Uh, I was telling you about the leaks coming out of the Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe's meetings that he was holding on Richard Halliday, that he put the politics before the soldiers. He put that. No wonder they're having a morale issue. No wonder they're not army ready, right? No wonder. No wonder they're having a sexual assault issue. No wonder they're having drug overdose issue, death by drug overdoses, and alcohol abuse, a lot of alcoholics, a lot of violent crimes. It's a real morale problem because they can't count on their leadership to have their back. They can't count on their leadership to do their duty, to be benevolent. Absolutely, in this case, I will tell you that the whole command has acted absolutely criminal, and worse than criminals, worse than criminals. And they have been defended to me, but the people that have defended them have not walked in our boots. They have not shared the experiences that we have, and the leaks and the leaks and the leaks that we have to sift through, that we have to be the investigators without the resources, the investigator without the large buildings that are secure and safe and air conditioned, not at anybody's expense except for the taxpayer. We've had to be the investigators without the large faculty, the large, what do I want to say, staff, the large staff, and without the equipment. Can you imagine the equipment and also the connections? And this is where I want to talk a little bit about the leaks, the new leaks that are coming out. So you have to have the equipment, right? You have to have the connections. So the connections can be all over the world. And I have to say, because my husband spent 30 years in serving in the Army, because my family is European Foundation, and our daughter is married to a Korean, and our sons were adopted from Poland. and we lived in Ireland. We have these connections around the world, not on purpose. It's like God, God prepared us for this time to think outside the box, to understand how important connections are, to understand how important resources are, to understand how governments work differently in every country, um, according to the peoples that they are trying to rule over. And I don't think they should rule over the people. I think they should serve the people, right? But that's not what's happening with the taxes, with the wars, with the decisions that are being made that they're saying that are better, that they make the decisions for the people than the people themselves make the decisions. Because in Ireland, they kept putting forth those elections. Do you remember my friends in Ireland? They will exactly know what I'm talking about. They would do an election until they got the result that they wanted. Um, Especially with the abortion issue, the Irish overwhelmingly voted against abortion, but they kept putting it through. Um, and anyway, it was a morale buster, okay? Because they knew that their leaders did not have their interest in mind, that their leaders were not public servants at all, that they were trying to lord over them, that they were trying to rule over them, that they were not, they didn't have the people's best interest at hand. And, well, that's pretty common. And we see that right now with everything that's going on, especially when it comes to crimes. It seems like the swift hearings are not happening. You see that in the Walmart case. That still has not been finished. Okay, they don't want it to be in public view, even though it's supposed to be in public view, because the public has oversight. Then its opinion has oversight. And, there's a lot of crazy things going around that case. And so they keep dragging it on and on and on. And, if it was swift and it was public and the jury could rule on it with a fair judge, it would be over with. It would be done with. And we wouldn't have all of the turmoil that's still going around about that hinders other cases like Richard's case, but other cases. So you have all these cases that are piling up in the system, and that's how they can manipulate. So it's like it's a tactic. It's a tactic to manipulate things the way you want. If you're in high places, you can just bottleneck everything and make it just so chaotic that you can then manipulate the outcome. Or you can work in the shadows. And in Richard's case, I believe they've worked in the shadows. And so the shadow snakes, I would call them, the cobra strikes, right? The shadow snakes have worked in Richard's case to hide the whereabouts of our son. And the leaks are coming forth that they knew. I told you yesterday, when it came to the Hart's family being involved in Find Richard Halliday, they knew all kinds of stuff about this household, dating back to 1990, complaints of child abuse, of the worst types of crimes, y'all, when it comes to children and family and, just the abuse. It's, so this is the complaints. Now, I would never have mentioned that but the CID and the FBI had files that were made by Leilani Hart that I'm sure, I don't know. I don't know. She can say it. She has to call me, but she had to get some help to get it through the CID, and she was bragging. There's a El Paso police report, a complaint that she was bragging that she runs the CID. How was she running CID? With sex. Now that's not me saying that. That's a complaint. Okay, this is what we're getting, that there was a complaint that she's ruling the El Paso CID, the Criminal Investigative Division, and that's very powerful. Could she do that? I think I need to call Angela Kocherga up and ask her, because Angela Kocherga thinks that Leilani Hart is pretty reliable. I didn't think so when I read the K-Tip article. I didn't think it was reliable at all, and the only reason why is because I get leaks and leaks and leaks, and I get these articles put in front of me, and I go through them and I tear them apart. My husband and I, we'll look at every little thing and talk about it and discern it. Could this be true? Could this be true? So, maybe Angela Kucherga could call me. She said she wanted to call me about this case. It's a showstopper. I think it would be right up her alley. It's about the border. It's about child sex trafficking. It's about child pornography, the making of it, the marketing of it, the broadcasting of it, the airdropping of it, making it available. And that is for grooming sake, for grooming, to normalize pedophilia, to normalize crime. Because if you watch any kind of porn, you are supporting child sex trafficking. And child sex trafficking is, there's more involved to that than just the child sex abuse. So you also have, of course, the narcotics. You also have other things. You also have the weapons dealings. And it's, El Paso and Fort Bliss are prime locations. They are good. They are good locations. They are good real estate, right? Isn't that what President Trump always says? This is good real estate. It's good real estate there because it's right there at the border. Beautiful Juarez. And you have Colonial Juarez, lots invested from Americans, because that's where the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints settled many years ago, about 100 years ago, maybe a little more. That was Mitt Romney's father, was born there at Colonial Juarez, and it's beautiful. It has a boarding school that is just lush, beautiful. They have a temple there that is absolutely the best kind of construction. I don't know how much that costs, but it's beautifully constructed. They don't do anything half, right? They don't do anything half. The grounds are kept beautiful, and there's a lot of farms there. There's a lot of ranches there. People live there. And so, to keep that border going, to keep Juarez going, El Paso and Fort Bliss are prime real estate to go to that area. And it's very interesting that Novo Casas Grande, I hope I am saying that, Novo Casas Grande, is also interesting because it has a China Plaza. So they spent a lot of money making this China Plaza. And I did get feedback with that they have a big Chinese community there. And so, you know, and people love that area. They grew up in that area. It's beautiful. It's lush. Okay. And so, getting back to Fort Bliss, that's prime property. And now we have Castner Range. And this is where we're getting leaks out. And you have to, I don't know if it's because of the phone tracing that we did. Let me see if I can go to this phone tracing. Put this on real quick. I told you about four different locations. I should say they are teams. 4 teams of locations. The first team being from Santa Clara, California. Very important team of traced phone calls. And if you haven't heard about the traced phone calls, when we received the leaks that Tavita Nusa was leaking files to Leilani Hart, and one of those being Richard's file. This was very important. We knew that there were leaks, but now we knew for sure that Richard had a file. Richard had a file because he went over and above the chain of command, outside the chain of command. We're told that he did go to his chain of command, but that they blew him off. Okay, they didn't have a 6. They didn't care about whistleblowers. They do care about whistleblowers, but not in a good way. Okay, not in a good way. So he went over and above the chain of command to go to Child Protective Services and make complaints there. And he turned in sex videos. We believe this is what triggered the people telling us that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. Okay? That perfectly makes sense because the CID who failed to tell us, and they absolutely knew that Richard was making Child Protective Service complaints and handed in sex videos, even though video has been tampered with, video is missing. But, everything's in the cloud today. There's no excuses. They failed to tell us that, but they would tell us, Richard Halliday didn't have an official IG complaint put in. Well, if he got blown off, if they blew him off because of child sex trafficking or child pornography, he felt strongly enough to go to Child Protective Services. And that would then trigger the IG being all over the barracks. And that makes sense now. But you see, the CID was working in the shadows. They were trying to keep the Child Protective Service complaints in the shadow. They were trying to keep the sex videos in the shadow. They were trying to keep Tavita Nusa's, let's say, willingly giving files over to Leilani Hart, because Leilani Hart was the boss, right? She was the boss. She might have called other people boss, but she was the boss. She was the boss to control the CID. That's what we're hearing. That's just what we're hearing. And someone felt so strongly about that they put in an El Paso police complaint about that. And so when we heard that Tavita Nusa was giving these files over, and Richard being one of them, and I made some phone calls, and the result was that they were using those files to fortify a complaint, a major complaint. And so we received the CID number for that complaint, that these files were used to fortify um, a, to destroy someone. Okay. And that was to destroy her husband. It was to destroy, and I think that that is so cruel because, you know, um, no matter what's going on, well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're up to no good. I don't know. I shouldn't even have an opinion on it. I should just say, look, that CID complaint that we received the number for and that we found out was notarized, and we did get confirmation from the notary public that it was notarized on the 22nd of July, 2020, and that was such a well-written CID complaint with so much evidence in it, so much information in it that were fortified with these files, one being Richard's file, that it went to the FBI, and then we received the FBI file number also. So that's how that all happened. And but they wanted the CID knew. See, that was the day before Richard went missing. It was the day before Richard went missing. So the CID knew Richard's file was already compromised. They knew that Richard had gone to the Child Protective Services. They knew that Richard was in danger. And the last video that we have of Richard that I have not released, I've released everything else, he was in danger. He was crying, y'all. And 5 days before that, he bought a pistol. So he was afraid. And I have to tell you, it was very shocking as a mother because Richard just, he didn't get afraid easy. He didn't get afraid easy. He was distinguished honor graduate for basic training and AIT. He didn't give up easy. He didn't show his emotions easily. He knew how to control his emotions. I think maybe that that might have annoyed people, but he was pretty conservative as far as showing his emotions. And so to see him in that video, I think is a very private moment for him. And we wanted to keep it that way. But he was scared. And yeah. So something was going on. And I'm going to tell you, with the leaks that we got today about Kastner Range, which is very interesting, that yesterday we went down to Atlanta to pick up our eldest daughter and 3 grandchildren from the airport, which, yay! Really wonderful. But Rob told me on the long drive, he said that he had gotten a notice from Veronica Escobar. And I'm like, really? She acknowledged our inquiries? And he's like, no, she's just, letting everyone know she's in campaign mode, that she got Kastner Range turned into a national monument, a federal, property there. And it's like, really? Wow. So I'm sure many, many people got that. We got that yesterday without any acknowledgement of our inquiries. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yep, I can't believe it's 11 o'clock. Time goes by so quick. So these leads that we got, the new leads that we got, are in the shadow. About in the shadow. What's going on really about Kastner Range? What happened at Kastner Range? What happened at Kastner Range? We need some canines Absolutely, we need some canines now. And we'll see if we can get a pinpoint location of exactly where we need to go. Um, and it's like, where is the help? Where's the oversight? Where is Bill Hicks? If he wants to clean up, I've been told he wants to clean up things. If he wants to clean up things, why isn't he cleaning up things? Because Richard's case absolutely would help clean up things, and he would get the support of so many service members. Um, Finding a missing soldier is, why isn't he doing it? Maybe, um, hmm, don't forget, our question is, and I should put that hat on. Our question is the FBI, hiding the remains of our son? Is the United States Army hiding the remains of our son? Are they working together? Because the one thing about this whole Trump debacle that we're watching, it's very, very clear that the state and the federal work together. They absolutely collude and conspire and work together, instead of checking each other and being oversight, checks and balances like it's supposed to be. There's just a lot of collusion there. And so for federal level and also state level. So is that in this case, and it looks like it, that there is colluding between the federal and the state? Because we're not getting, Bill Hicks should offer this to us. He should call us. We still haven't gotten a phone call. He should reach out. We have contacted him. I believe I just wrote another email, and it was a lot of people on there. I believe he was on there. I have to make sure. If not, I'll contact him. But he knows that we're here. He knows about Richard's case. He knows more about Richard's case than you would think, because there's a shadow that privileged people, a curtain hanging over information, articles, different processes that have taken place that the rest of us can't see. And it's like saying, I'm going to put the 10 Commandments on a stick. Everyone knows what it is, but I'm going to hold it up about 300 feet in the sky. I'll put it up there, and no one will ever even be able to read it. And it says, well, it's there to read, but you won't know what the law is because you can't read it. It's not available, even though it's there and it's out there, but it's not available. And I think this is the shadow government that's going on right now. I think they even put things in shadow documents and shadow articles to cover themselves. And it's not available, though, to read. And so if they can shadow ban millions of people coming out from Santa Clara, right? Santa Clara, California was the hub of the shadow banners. They were the ones that were censoring and shadow banning millions of people to control narratives. And one of those narratives, I'm sure I was one of them. I even have this on the back here on this flag, that the germ theory is trash. Because, look, I have 8 grandkids, and they fall, they'll lick their hands, and they play with each other, and they drink each other's drinks, and they eat each other's food, and they have a great time and everything like that. The germ theory is trash. I have many, many reasons, and I even have scientific reasons because of Christina Massey. She's like the hero of that because she wanted proof. But look her up. She's absolutely a hero, absolutely deserves an award in my estimation, and many, many doctors, many scientists. And so I just played Michael Yeadon. I remembered his name, who, has his opinion right now of what happened to all these snake oil salesmen that committed crimes against humanity, and did it through shadow documents, shadow government, shadow banning, shadow. They have control. Certain people have control, and we're employees, and they, the unknown, right? The unknown, the known and the unknown, the known and the unknown that control things. And we tend to forget about the unknown, the things that are unseen, the seen and the unseen. And we forget about the unseen. And I know every week when I'm in church, I say my confession, the known and the unknown, the things that I knew I did wrong, the things that I did wrong that I don't even know that I did wrong. And we seem to forget that there is a shadow world out there, that there are shadow documents out there, that there are shadow powers out there, people working behind the scenes. Absolutely. And you're a fool if you call that tinfoil hat, because we absolutely know that there are movers and shakers from the beginning of time, behind the scenes, in the shadows, that try to manipulate the world and the people of the world, the land, and the resources thereof. So it's very, very clear. So this, and they try to do it through a psyop. Psyop is very in the shadow, because they'll, put all these commercials up, or they will fund media, and we know that they fund the news media, and they'll act it. They'll stage a task force, Find Richard Halliday. That's a shadow, because underneath that, they know that there's either Richard was already found, or he can't be found. Okay, because there was every bit of privilege, or every bit of, let's just say, they would benefit. There was all kinds of benefit to finding Richard. And yet they staged a task force, Find Richard Halliday. So that tells you that there's something in the shadows lurking. Either Richard can't be found, or they already found him. And so when they staged the canine search, they had, it would be so beneficial to the Army and all the service members to watch a proper canine search for a fellow missing soldier, right? Using the proper canine, the proper handler, doing everything. It would be such great training. It would be beneficial to everybody's morale. It would cost a lot less than the multi-million-dollar campaign that they just put out, the Be All You Can Be, that turned out to be a disaster because the star turned out to be a criminal. So why not just do your duty and get a good human remains sniffing dog, canine, with a name, with a handler and a handler's name, and do a proper search for days for the missing soldier. It would have been absolutely magnificent, and we would have gotten some answers, some legitimate answers. And that was staged. That was just debunked. That was 2 hours. Look at Fort Bliss is huge, but they give us, oh, well, that's 2 hours. And then the dog had to go pee pee poo poo. And I'm not calling for another canine unless you bring me a lead. That's what Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe said. And I'm not, and he was adamant, He was going to put his foot down on that one. We staged a canine, but I don't want to go through another stage. Canine, that was the shadow. That was what was in the shadow. Okay, just like the task force. And then, of course, Richard's DUI. That was in the parking lot. And I want to bring this up because this is very important to the lead that we got today, the leads that we got today. And that is, it was dismissed. And why was it dismissed? Okay, because it's a huge moneymaker. You know, you get these young kids and you tell them, oh, we take underage drinking seriously, but here, have a bottle of vodka. We'll give you at the class 6 a discount price. Here, we'll give you whiskey. I'll even buy it for you, no problem. Just give me $5 extra or whatever. So they don't take underage drinking seriously. Oh, we'll mix this up and put it in a sealet, call it a grog, but oops, it has antifreeze in it and it can kill you. And 11 soldiers were, some hospitalized seriously because of drinking grog from a sealet out in the field, and most of them were underage. I'm going to tell you that right now because they wouldn't publish the ages, and they would have if they were of age. It would not even be an issue, but they didn't. They put it in the shadow. So this is just like the other day I gave a live stream about pollution, about all this crime polluting families, polluting the land, polluting our society, polluting our minds, polluting our children, polluting everything. And it really does pollute our animals because there are certain ways to raise children. There are certain ways to raise animals. There are certain ways to deal with the land, the environment. And if you're just have a society of pollution and pollution and pollution, it is very, very bad for the environment. And it's toxic. It's absolutely toxic. So this is what I'm talking about today in the shadow. So this shadow, this toxic criminal shadow that's polluting things, it's like this big old cloud, dark cloud. But so what the lead and remember about Santa Clara, that was all in the shadow. Nobody wants you to know that there were actual groups of people, major groups of people, huge groups of people that were impeding an election, that was impeding the truth getting out about your health and your health care and your health risks. Okay. That they were tampering with all of the narratives. And this is a psyop. This is psychological operation to get people to do what you want them to do by withholding information, by shadowing information, making it difficult to access, difficult to find, impossible to find, and well, not totally impossible, but very, very difficult. And so these kind of leaks are coming out right now, those that were in the shadow. And this DUI, it would not have been dismissed unless they know what happened to Richard. That they think that Richard would not come back. That they think Richard is dead. That they think Richard was murdered. That they know what happened. That they had inside information about what happened to Richard. About the findings of Richard. And I absolutely believe that because they do want to get every nickel and dime they can from these young volunteer sons and daughters of this republic, and more and more. There is no, they have no benevolent nature in them. They do not have the best interest of who they're serving, and they don't even realize that they're public servants. They are totally they've totally forgotten their duty. They've totally forgotten how that job even got started. And now it's bloated. We have 44 four-star generals. Why do we have that? That's bloated. We only have 1.3 million service members, if that. We had 13 million during World War II and only had 7 four-star generals. But we're bloated because of this shadow information. To cover up lies and lies and shadows, it takes a lot of work and a lot of people. And that's why they keep on creating DAs and attorney USAs, attorney generals, and attorney general assistant, and blah, blah, blah. They keep creating Gregory McDonald's and Jaime Esparza and Bill Hicks and 44 four-star generals. They keep creating them, these jobs, right? That creates them. They might be better plumbers, right? They might be better engineers. They might be better at doing something else in this world. But they can't reach their potentiality because we have such a shadow government, such pollution that it's easy to make money as a so-called shadow public servant. I don't even think that's right, but like a staged public servant that really is working for foreign and domestic enemies in this shadow world. So who are controlling the direction of the shadow? Who's doing that? And you know, why? What happened to Richard? Why are we getting reports about Kastner Range? Okay, and people will talk about the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado of the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, which is like right there. Okay, so I'm going to explain this, what I think, with all the information. We were getting bullied from even the highest places, and one of the highest places is right here. Why? Yeah, there's the Washington Monument. And there's the White House. Why would our bully numbers start after the leak of Tavita Newsett and Leilani Hart that, you know, now has really blown up because, you know, we have proof that they exist. We turned it all in, and it's silence. They want to keep everything in the shadow, you see. Their silence. They don't want to answer us about our inquiries to this level of crime. And we even turned in these phone trace results. And they've just been silent. They haven't answered us. Why would they do that? Why would they be so quiet about something so huge? To catch the government, that absolutely, if it's coming out of the White House, if it's coming out of the City Hall of Toronto, there's collusion, there's conspiracy, there's, you know, but maybe there is a valid reason. We have the Denmark team of areas that one phone led to that is NATO. So is NATO, you know, and then the other is, so you have the shadow of Santa Clara, California. You have the main hub of Washington, D.C., the White House in Toronto. And then you have another team that's in in Denmark, where there's NATO, and then you have another team that's in South Korea. So, um, and they're bullying us after we get this information of the leaks. Why? We just want to find Richard, right? We just want to find Richard. Why is this so? And why wouldn't they answer and say, "Oh yeah, we looked into those numbers and they were from this and this and this," right? Um, and absolutely, they could tell us who was bullying us. Okay, because we have people telling other people that they knew who was behind bullying us. So why don't they answer it? It's is that just talk? It's like this discerning this um, method that we use to trace these bullies is more reliable than just hearing rumors. Okay, so and we're not getting answers to this, and that's trying to keep everything in the shadows, trying to keep everything polluted, trying to keep everything toxic. And that's why our morale, and that's why we don't have peace. My husband and I, we were talking about that this morning. Um, when we were younger, and here we are in Holy Week, um, you had a lot of peace during this week. You had time. Um, you had time to observe your faith. And people today say, you have to make time, you have to make time. No, when you're being bullied, when you're being assaulted, when you are being, um, what do I want to say, threatened, when your family is under this kind of, I want to say assault, there is no peace, and they don't want to give you peace. Say that's why God always talked about peace be with you. Peace be with you. Let my peace go with you. Because when we live in His world, you have absolute peace to enjoy your life and your faith and your family, and it's so much more peaceful. And I know when we were children in the United States, it was more peaceful. And I'm not saying that there wasn't corruption or crime or whatever, but it was definitely more peaceful. So and in Germany too, and I've talked about that also, my experience living in Germany. I've spent most of my life living in Germany, so you had so much more peace. You didn't have the manipulation of currency. You didn't have the wanting to tax. Um, when you have a stable currency and you don't have a Federal Reserve Bank, because see, the Federal Reserve Bank had to happen for there had to be an IRS for the Federal Reserve Bank to happen, or vice versa. The two have to go together, right? So, you just don't have peace with that. you don't have peace with currency manipulation. You don't have peace with banking problems all the time, right? Um, so, and being unsure about the future. The future is always at risk. And right now, because everything is this shadow, we don't know what the laws are. We really don't. Because people that obey the laws in our book, they're breaking the laws, and yet they're getting a third star. They're getting promoted. They can write articles that are in the shadow and get promoted. And the things that are in the articles need to be transparent, and they're not. They're in the shadows. So praise God for leaks, because things that, are put, 300 feet up, laws, and then, but if you have somebody that has a good truck with a ladder or one of those lifts that can get you up there so you can read it, that's a real blessing. So it's like people are shining a light in the shadow so that we can see what's there. That has to do with Richard. And what it's showing is that the leadership knows. They know. They know what happened to Richard. And they set forth their shadow government to dot their I's and cross their T's. Okay? They live outside because they are serving foreign and domestic enemies. They don't live in our world. They use a different system. And that's today was made very clear that they live in a different system than we do. And they live under a different leadership than we do. And by different laws than we do. So what do I think happened? Because when you put this together with the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado and the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM, who has not been discredited. He has not been discredited. You can't just say, oh, he's just some crazy guy watching your Facebook. And me say, oh, okay, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. Look at my demographics. I don't know what it is right now. But at that time, October 26 in 2020, it was not 60-year-old men that were business people, that were successful, that had successful children. That's not what my demographics was. That I didn't know. Friends, yeah. Friends, family members, yes. But that was not my demographics. And I said, that doesn't make sense to me. How does he have time to watch my Facebook? How does he have time? I mean, he can read the newspaper and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to say a prayer for the missing soldier. But, he's a busy man. And it concerns him so much that he would be bold enough to say, take down the flyer. Take down the flyer of Richard Halliday. Take him down. Because I'm with the FBI. And the FBI has found his remains, right? Has found him. They found him. And they found him in Juarez, Mexico. So that's a really big deal. So how does Castner Range is not in Juarez, Mexico. All right. How does that happen? And don't forget that Richard was contacted on the day that he disappeared. I don't know how they got him out of that barracks. I don't know. I don't know if it was a change of command that made it simple to get out of the barracks. I don't know. I don't know if he was drugged. If somehow he was drugged with something to get him out of that barracks. I know that Richard would never go over to Juarez. I don't know if someone was playing a practical joke on him or just to be mean to get even for maybe causing the IG to be all over the barracks because of him. I don't know. Because if it was a practical joke, if it was a get even kind of thing, and they drugged him and he ended up in Juarez, because we do have that lead that says that he was not in his right mind. He was calling out and saying, I'm an American soldier. I'm an American soldier. I need help. I'm an American soldier. And maybe the get even went wrong. Maybe it went wrong. Because Richard had a pistol. And, maybe because he was in uniform, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is these two things go together. Castner Range and the father-in-law's story go together. And I don't know if it's a get even. I don't know if it happened there and there was panic. I don't know. For the border, that I've been told so many stories about how that would be too risky and everything. At this point, I don't think it is at all. They don't care. It's who you know. If you know someone on that Santa Teresa port of entry, if you know someone, and I think that would be the most likely one, and I think that it fits the traffic pattern really well. Let's put that up. It fits the traffic pattern really, very much so. Did I put that in here? Let's see. Maybe I didn't. I think I put it at the end of my video. And I know I have it on here, so I'll look for it while I talk to you. But that traffic pattern, it fits perfectly with Santa Teresa. There's a lot of questions there. No one talks about it. And I think that it needs to be talked about. I think we need answers. I think there needs to be an inspector general. We're in contact. Here it is. I found it now. This is the traffic pattern. This is the port of entry right here. And it would be very easy to go where his remains, or some of his remains. I don't know. Everything has been so sloppy that I think this is sloppy too. And if you go to Castner Range, I was looking that up today to follow the leads that we have had. And Castner Range, let's see. There's Copenhagen. I look at all this stuff. We look at all this stuff because we want to find Richard. But Castner Range is, put this in the middle. Is right here. Yeah. So we have a leak saying, oh, goodness gracious, y'all. It's so messy. And it seems like that's par. To be sloppy is par. I I don't know if they had the intention of killing Richard. I think they had an intention to hurt him because absolutely Major General Clem Coward had an intention to hurt Richard. Absolutely Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, Michael Roddick, had the intention to hurt Richard. Absolutely Captain Park had an intention to hurt Richard. The letter that I got from Captain Park, and not even my husband, just to me, showed an intention to hurt Richard. Okay? Hurt him, his character, make him look bad, make him look like he was being investigated. I think he was being investigated, but no mention of the Child Protective Service complaint, no mention of turning in the sex videos, no mention of Richard trying to defend children from sex abuse. Okay? No mention of that. This letter was meant to point a finger and to intimidate so that we would stop looking for our son. Every step of the way of this entire case, botched case, totally botched investigation, any effort in this has been totally botched. It's been messy and sloppy. And every intention was to hurt Richard, to hurt his character, to hurt his family's judgment of him. And that is not what an Army command does when a soldier goes missing, unless some major crime has been committed, something terribly wrong has been committed, and they're so afraid for their careers that they will do anything. They will go to huge lengths to put it in the shadows. So do I believe? I still am not convinced that Richard's start of a very wicked night was in Juarez. Okay? Somehow that happened. I'm not convinced it didn't happen. And I think that it ended stateside on Fort Bliss. And from what I'm hearing, Castner Range. And I think maybe I have a certain person in my mind that I might owe an apology to. Because I think it ended at Castner Range. And I think they know. I think Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe knows. I think General McConville knows. I think General Garrett knows. I think lots of people know. I think it took a huge concerted effort from Denmark to South Korea to Toronto to the White House to Santa Clara to put this in the shadows. And absolutely El Paso, and let's really get to the shadow government. We absolutely know that Attorney General Jaime Esparza, we know that the DA, Bill Hicks, we know that Gregory McDonald, we know that, and I wanted to check the other people, we know that the FBI, Jeff Downey, and I'm starting to know these names. I should know them like the back of my hand. They should be contacting us and be doing their job. But you see, they work in a shadow world. They work for somebody else. They're not public servants. Okay. Now, they're on the public servant's dime, but they don't work for the public they don't work for the public. They're not public servants. Because we would have gotten victims advocacy help by now. We would have gotten sponsorship to go to El Paso. Uh, we would have had media help by them. We would have gotten a different response from Veronica Escobar. But you see, we don't work in that shadow government. We want a true Department of Defense that defends the Constitution. And we want people to have freedom to determine their own health care, to determine their own health risks. And so when we did not want to go along with the COVID nonsense, insanity, when we did not believe the smear campaign that was coming out, groundless smear campaign, but we know it's groundless now, 80 subpoenas and warrants on Richard. But at the time, we stood by Richard. We said, absolutely, that is ludicrous. This is a groundless smear campaign because they're not bringing anything out to prove to us what they have done. To bring in a senior leader to the military police, stand him in front of the military police there at Fort Bliss on the guard mount, the change of shift, and for a missing soldier, and not just any missing soldier. Richard is the very first CONUS DES 1 missing soldier under the new Vanessa Guillen absent soldier flowchart. So what they were doing is slapping Vanessa Guillen right in the face. They were spitting on her grave. That's what they were doing. By bringing the senior leader in to smear Richard, instead of trying to do everything possible to find Richard. Because by smearing Richard, somehow they relayed the message to the military police that they didn't have to look for Richard. That they could even persuade others for not looking for Richard. And so this is this shadow, unjust government that they're working for. And it is a government. There is a leader. There is a hierarchy, y'all. There are laws in this shadow government, this foreign and domestic enemy government that lurks in the shadows, that does things behind our back, that does things under the table, that does things in dark closets, that does things in trillion-dollar homes, billion-dollar homes, million-dollar homes, whatever, with billion-dollar contracts. Okay? They might do it on their yacht. These colluding and conspiracies. They might, whatever. I don't know. All I know is there's a shadow, very elite government that has their hands, their claws, their tentacles, and they might be very well manicured. They might be very gracious to those who lockstep. They might seem like very kind people to those who lockstep. Give very good gifts to those who lockstep. But can be completely vicious to the Constitution, to those who don't want to bow to the hat, to those that are Christians, to those that want an answer to where their son is. Where's my son? And the dates that are very important to us from this leak, July 2020, it's important. It's important because I knew. But September 2020 and October 2020. We have exact dates, but we're inquiring about September 2020 and October 2020. And they should definitely, the IG needs to inspect this botched investigation, and inspect the Attorney General and the DA, and of course Gregory McDonald and his job with the border, and the FBI, and the others there. There's so many AUSAs there. They need to be inspected, because something is very, very wrong when a U.S. Army soldier can disappear from his barracks room, and we have a tangled we're told that we need to be the investigators. We're told that we're the ones that need to be the ones that bring the leads, and we're not getting the canine for you unless that one canine was enough, that fake, because that's nerve-wracking, might go pee-pee and poo-poo, and I might be found out because maybe I'm breaking a law. Everything they've done is so criminal, y'all. It's not criminal in their book because they're in this shadow law. But for us, it's criminal. And that's why they delay these long trials. They bottleneck all the crimes. They create chaos so they can free people that they want to free, and imprison people that they want to imprison. And if you think that you can get through this, if this is what I tell myself, Pat, you're in danger. They're putting you in danger. People have been telling me, you better watch out. They're putting you in danger. There are mean people. And you know who they're talking about? They're not talking about my neighbor. They're not talking about William Timmons. They're not talking about Lindsey Graham. They're not talking about Ted Cruz. They're not talking about Jaime Esparza. They're not talking about they're talking about those in the shadows. Those are the ones that they're saying, watch out, you're in danger. You might, awaken the shadow beast. And there's 6 ways to Sunday that the intelligence agency will get back to you. And you're being real dumb. You're being real dumb. But, I come from a German heritage. To not do anything when you know that people are getting hurt, and it might not be, be putting them in the train cars and going and putting them in toxic showers where you have this genocide. It might not be that. But there are real dangers happening to our people today, economically, psychologically, physically. There are real dangers from the shadow government. And to stand and do nothing, especially being a Gigi, especially always looking towards the future. I always want to look towards the future. Here now too, but to the future. Leave the world a better place than I found it. This has been my goal. How can I bless whatever is in my sphere of influence? How can I bless it? How can I leave the world a better place than I found it? And to cower, especially when it comes to my own child, um, I wouldn't be doing what I've set out to accomplish in my life. So, um, but I had a little cry today because of these leaks. They just still, it's unnecessary because they know, y'all. They know what happened to Richard. They've reported it in the shadows. In the shadows, they get the truth. But for us, we don't get the truth. They get to move on in their evil endeavors while we're in chaos and trying to figure out what's going on to do the right thing. And they're preventing people from making the world a better place. They're preventing people from reaching their potentialities, from blessing other people because of the chaos that they're creating by convincing us that we're under the Constitution and they are too, but they're not. They're under the shadow government. Who is the shadow government? Who directed Veronica Escobar to make Kastner Range a top priority? Because once it is a national monument, you can't take things out of it. And there's a lot of caves there. There's a lot of caves. So we need dogs on Kastner Range. Absolutely. But we also need answers we need a good inspection. This is a botched investigation. We need a new investigation. It wouldn't start from the beginning. We just need someone that is not influenced by the shadow to do this investigation. And that's the trick, isn't it? I'll take your questions now. Oh, yes. I'm forgetting to please 1,000 letters. 1,000 letters. 5 comments. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Anicia. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Danielle. People cross the borders every day. Oh, yeah. The whole thing with the borders, it is not as risky as they say. Nope, especially when you have connections. I just went over there so many times, over 2 dozen times. Um, I think if you know people, you have connections, you have privileges, you have passes, you have whatever. Um, yeah, I think it's not a problem. Top comments, Danielle. Thank you. And I know, um, I just haven't been convinced yet that that father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM, Richard's command, is just a nothing burger. I'm not convinced of that. I think it's huge. So thank you so much. God bless you. I will be back tomorrow, God willing. And, the leaks keep coming. So thank you very much. And also, and I should read this to you. I should read this, what I wrote. Let me display it. And everything with Trump right now, y'all. Everything I put up is for a reason. Breaking information. Team Find Richard Halliday has received reliable information that there have been additional leaks in our son's case. And there is evidence associated with the forced disappearance of our son located on Castner Range. We are in communication with the Office of the Inspector General regarding this development. And we request that anyone with additional information, this is the part I really wanted to read, we request that anyone with additional information regarding this area and foul play reach out to us. 941-677-0060. We are particularly, I misspelled that, particularly concerned with the following dates, September 2020 and October 2020. It is very telling that Representative Veronica Escobar was under directions to certify this area as a national monument. Who directed her and why? Those are the big questions. So, thank you very much, and I will be back tomorrow. God